Hi testing folks, welcome to Confirming. Confirming has already released its new version Creator 4.5.3 and which you can download from the extranet for which the link is available in the description. This video is regarding what is meant by TDC and how we can better make use of this TDC, that is Test Design Configuration concept. So now let me start a briefing about the TDC. So firstly, what is TDC? TDC is Test Design Configuration which stores the test target settings. All the test target settings made for each of the model flow are stored within one DC. By default, for each of the project, there will be one test design configuration, which is but users can add as many as test design configuration as required based on the current scope of testing and other testing requirements. Let me give you in detail insights about the test design configuration by considering a project. So, for which I am considering an application called as Parabank with respect to the agile testing process for the per sprint basis. There are requirements which keep on changing and which needs to be updated in the test cases as well. So, instead of creating the entire model again and again, the test design configuration concepts will serve as the uh, best solution in this regard. So as you can observe now within this creator, I have tried to model the entire application now, and this is I am doing for one time, and I tried to cover the flows of admin page, then login, which has some the validations for the login, the true flow and the else flow, and there is a requirement of providing has login success and an error login if the validation goes wrong. And coming to the other flow is the new register flows, that is for the new user registration. So again validation of the register, and yeah, so this is the flow which is for the sprint one now. And for this flow this is the main flow, I can say. So I have generated the test cases for this flow. Now let us see within the confirming test design perspective. As you can see now, there are now 9 test cases which have already been generated, each of them covering the individual flow. For example, if the login is unsuccessful, we'll see the login area is getting covered and the login is verified and the invalid login flow which is gets highlighted. And for the administration, we can see the flow is getting covered. So in this way, we model initially. Now if now for this model to be source of truth, along with the changes in the application, all those changes needs to be updated here, and so is the test cases as well. And if in case if any of the previous changes which has been need to be reverted, that is the test cases generated for the previous changes need to be used. So even for that use case, the test and configurations help. So I am considering this as a sprint one, and for the sprint 2, where now some new changes have been put into the application, and now that needs to be modeled. For that sake, it is not required that we need to again model the entire stuff, that is creating structure diagrams for the again the entire application, and again coming back to the AD, putting those action repositories and making the model. So the entire process is not required. What one thing we can do is that instead of creating a new project every time and generating the test cases and again, we can reduce this entire testing process time by considering another DC. uh, ha- so let me show you how the by creating another DC and making use of proper the confirming test design perspective, we will be able to have optimized testing process. So I have considered here the same model diagram, but I have added the new test design configuration here called as sprint 2, and I have disabled the sprint 1. So you can learn more about this enabling and disabling of the test design configurations in the release video. So yeah, coming back to the main concepts here, that is by applying the new test design configuration. Now I have updated the main flow, that is what we had for the sprint one, and that is the new flow consists of providing an extension for the true flow of the login. So the true flow of the login now has an extension of several options such as the open new account, find transaction, bill pay. So again, followed by its more sub extensions. So these are the new flow elements or the new model flow which needs to be tested. So this is how the application undergoes changes with the new requirements, and so this is how the different sprints have been developed within the agile process, and for each of them it is not required to create a new project every time, but we can go ahead by creating a new test design configuration such that now within our confirming test design phase, we have here something called as test target view. So let me expand this. So within this test target view, we have the requirements, and then we have the activity diagrams, and we have the conditional branching. So here what we can do is that we can try to block those elements which are not required for this scope of testing. For example, the flow of admin page, right? So that is how we can block them, and then once we have blocked those particular flows and like which are not required for the current modeling perspective, that is for the current model flow, those flow elements which we can block it, and once we have blocked, and we need to enable or target only those test targets which are which come under the main model flow or the current scope of test flow, I can say. So in our current scope, the main flow includes the activity node, which includes the sub AD, then the event node, the logging, and followed by the valid login, then and all other these option flows, right? So that test design phase now. So we will try to block all the non-required elements, and once we have blocked them successfully, then we can go ahead with generating the test cases. So in this case, I've generated the test cases already, and we can export the test cases as well. So as you can see within the test case folder, whatever the sprint name we have provided, based on that we get to see the test cases generated. So one of the use case, that is where if we need the test cases for any of the study of the impacts of the previous changes, or the what were the requirements to study the requirements of sprint 1, we already have those test cases generated which we can take out, and we can go forward with the different releases per sprint release basis testing process. So within the confirming test review, we will see that now if I consider the transaction of say the find transaction, so the model is highlighted only for the flow, and which is considering this find transaction, the model flow element, and others all are marked as red, which means that those are not getting covered. So this is how we can optimize the test flow. We can optimize the test cases as well, and we can reduce and fasten our the testing process, and generating more number of test cases. And each of these test cases, like how we generate on per sprint basis, they can be stored by exporting the test cases, and all of them are organized within the test case folder. This is how the test design configuration provides a solution for generating the test cases, or providing more efficiency to the entire testing process with respect to the agile test process, where for each sprint the new changes are implemented, and for the model to be source of truth, it needs to be updated. So this is how the test design configuration helps us. Now coming to the other use case, where for the different types of testing needs to be carried out for the same application which is annotated, that is in this case Parabank, where user has a requirement of going with the functional testing, or they can be requirement of going with regression testing, or um, uh, only testing the new updated flow, that is the sanity testing. So in this case we can still go ahead with the test design configuration, and so if I consider this has the main functional testing, and if I need to test the regression testing, what we can do is that within this confirming modeling perspective, I consider the same model flow, which is where the valid login flow has been extended, and it has been given some other sub extension flow elements. So now let me go to the confirming test design perspective, and here in this case I have generated the test cases already, and we can see that this is for covering all the flow elements, and that is all considering this as the first phase of the entire testing cycle, where whatever the developments has been made we need to test it. So I'm going under the functional testing category. So now we can see the 100% test coverage has been issued now. Now, going ahead with now regression testing, such that some new other changes has been adopted. Make sure that those changes do not impact the existing test flow. So for which I enable the other test design configuration. So here in this case, I have already generated test cases for the regression testing. Where for the regression testing for my, which is my current scope of testing, my requirement is that within the list of requirements, I need not to test the administration page. I need to test the error flow. Then I need to test the transactions, and then I need to test the login successful. If so, only these I have enabled them. So this is how you can make the changes, and all this needs to be updated within the activity diagram as well. So within the activity diagram, as you can see, so let me expand this. So within the activity diagram, as you can see, the admin page has been blocked and then provided by the forgot login information, and only those targets have been enabled which are required for my current scope of testing. So in this way, by undergoing this blocking technique, where the elements which are not required for the current scope of testing or for the as per the requirements of that testing, we can block those elements and target only those elements which are within the main model flow of testing. So once we have properly blocked at all the positions, when that means within the requirement section, within the activity diagram section, which includes the nodes, control flows, then action invocations, data objects. So once at each and every place, the for that particular associated data, once the blocking has been provided, then we can go ahead with generating of test cases. So in my case, I've generated a test case and I exported them. So once we have exported them, within the test cases we can see and the regression test cases have been exported, which includes the test cases only for that particular elements which have been made as target for that scope of testing. In case of functional, we will see the test cases covering all the model flow elements, whereas for the regression, we see only those elements which were made as target. Coming to the test perspective, those which have been blocked, I mean the elements which have been blocked and not the part of the current test flow, those have been marked in red, and all other flows which are included, which are considered as test targets for this scope of testing, those are being highlighted here. And for each of the test cases, for example, the transaction ID or the amount, the different test cases which have been generated, we can see that the flows are getting covered. We can also go ahead with the sanity testing. So let me consider here. Now suppose for the sanity test, the flow is such that the only the new updated feature which has been added, that needs to be tested. For example, in this case, within the Parabank application and this model flow, I am considering the updated flow is within the update contact information, where the new node has been added called as logout, and the new requirement called as profile updated. So these are the new changes which have been made in the application, and only now these changes needs to be tested. So for which I have disabled the other two test design configuration and only enabled a new test design configuration which holds the test targets covering only these flow elements, that is the logout flow elements, the update contact flow, the update contact information, followed by before which we have the event and login validation and the main initial nodes. So this is the only flow which needs to be tested, and this is my current scope of testing. So within the confirming test design phase now, within this test target view, where we have these requirements, activity diagrams, conditional branching. So all these needs to be uh, blocked as per the requirement. That is, the targets which are not required. I mean, the different flow elements, that is admin, forget login information, or the bill payment, the transaction. So all these elements which are not required, those needs to be blocked. As you can see now within the activity diagram, the test coverage is low, which clearly states that the number of elements which have been blocked, and very few elements have been considered for the this current scope of testing. So uh, so, so let me expand this. So as you can see now, the different flow elements which are not required have been blocked, and only which are required, that is the main initial node, that is the activity, the login, the logout. So only these have been considered, and these forms the nodes, as well as within the data objects we can see the transaction by date, data range, amount. Those all have been blocked. Only the login which is required, and the other supported its associated flow, in this case that is the contact information, has been taken into account. So once this has been done, that is the proper blocking, we go for generating the test cases, and we can see that only one test case has been generated in my case, and which is the expected, because since there is only one flow which has been highlighted with through this test target settings, and these test target settings are such that they are particular to the test design configuration which has been enabled. That is, uh, the test design configuration which is in enable mode. For that TDC, whatever the test target settings have been done, only those test target settings will be stored. If we try to switch between the different test target settings, we see the difference in the coverage, the difference in number of elements which have been blocked, and the number of targets which have been enabled. So in this way, we can see that we can proceed with faster testing. We can reduce the overall the testing process time, and the manual efforts of creating again and again a new project, and the entire model flow itself gets reduced drastically. So coming to the confirming test review now, we can see that only as mentioned earlier, only one test case has been uh, generated, and go if I click on it, the flow goes like this, covering the main flow, that is the initial node, activity node 1, the login flow, the valid login true flow, and we can see that the update contact information, update contact, and logout. So all these are getting covered, and we do not see anything here in this main flow which is marked as red. So this clearly states that these all elements are covered, and the other elements which are marked as red, those elements which have been blocked, so they're not getting covered in this case. Now there can be requirements, so this is one of the use case. Now coming to the direct practical application, say for example the application which has been designed, it has the market application of getting viewed by the users in the desktop as well as in the mobile. So the different elements of the application which needs to be visible in the mobile perspective or in the desktop perspective. So based on that, if the testing needs to be carried out, then still it can be done by considering the same test case settings concept, the blocking techniques, and the test design configuration, that is by using multiple test design configuration in this use case as well. So let me show this demonstration to you. As you can see, I have created two test design configuration which stores the test tagger settings for the desktop applications as well as the mobile applications from user point of view. So considering the model flow of the same Parabank application where the admin page forms the viewable flow element for desktop, and there are other flows which forms the applications for the mobile. So within the sub AD, like here at the very start initial, addition has been made. Two flows have been given, one for the desktop and for mobile. So the flow covering these mobile have been blocked within the test target setting. As you can see now, I've generated the test cases, and the coverage is not 100% because some of the flows, although the total number of flow elements are 277, but some of the flows which cover the mobile flow elements within the sub AD, they have been blocked, and the one which are required for the desktop have been enabled, that is they have been set as target, and even for since they need to be stored within the desktop, so the test design configuration for desktop has been enabled and for the mobile has been disabled, and we can go ahead with exporting the test cases and storing its one version. So once the test cases are exported, we can go ahead with making the changes as per the required, as per the new updates or the requirements for which the changes needs to be applied. As you can see now within this subhead, uh, uh, only the flow covering the desktop has been covered, and the elements which have been blocked are marked as red. So this is how we can have the easy understanding and have a faster test generation, as well as the efficiency of testing process can be improved by providing where the test design multiple test design configuration concept provides a clear picture of users of organizing the test cases and uh, providing higher efficiency in the entire testing cycle. So coming to the confirming test design perspective, now if I enable the test design configuration for mobile, so initially all the test cases get deleted, and if I go, but the test target settings remain still same, still intact. Once the test cases have been generated, we'll be able to see that uh, the elements which are required for the current scope of testing, that is for the mobile flow, only those will be covered, and the ones which are covered for the desktop will be blocked. So for this, once it has been enabled, we can always have a backup by exporting the test cases, so that these changes, whatever made to the current test flow, will have a copy of it. And once it has been done, we can view in confirming test design perspective. As you can see now, the desktop flow has been marked in red, which clearly states that these are the elements which have been blocked and they're not required for the current scope of testing. So whatever the test cases which have been generated, we will see that those all will cover only the flow, that is the mobile flow, for which the targets have been enabled. So this is how the multiple test design configuration will help the user to have enhanced testing performance, providing reduced work amount of time, as well as reduced manual efforts, and increasing the speed of overall testing cycle. Thank you.